Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Steven Universe episode review. This is going to be for Season 5, Episode 11 and 12, Lars of the Stars and Jungle Planet? I think that's what it was called, Jungle something or other. So we get 2 episodes, 22 minutes, and yeah, obviously, I think usual complaints about the show just randomly releasing episodes and immediately going on break again. I think have to come up. It just really doesn't help the flow of the season. Everything feels so disconnected because of the way they're presenting the episodes, and it's sort of hard to remember everything. And it overall has just the effect of feeling like, oh wait, what happened before this? Like, do I need to rewatch like the entire season again just to get an idea about the full context for this episode? So I definitely think that's something that needs to be fixed, and for the most part, it feels like it's one of the only things really getting in the way of the show kind of flowing as well as it could be, because I think this season's actually been fairly good. It's just been so disjointed because it's been like 2-3 episodes here, 2 episodes here, like 5 episodes here. It just really hasn't helped things at all. But I think overall we're starting to get into, I think, some of the stuff we've been looking for, like a little bit more focus on the diamonds. Like the second episode here, very, very interesting in like getting to see Pink Diamond like properly for the first time. Obviously they could go down the road of kind of altering how exactly we're meant to perceive that, but if indeed it's meant to be presented very bluntly that this is what it is, very, very interesting. I think a lot of the Steven Universe kind of theory people out there going very heavy with stuff from this episode into the, roses, pink diamond kind of theories and so on. But yeah, let's get into the first episode, Lars of the Stars. So Stephen and Connie obviously kind of friends again, the issues behind them, go of course into space to, actually visit Lars. And it is interesting because obviously we kind of jump back in and they kind of realize that, oh, he's not just kind of cowering on his own with these kind of gems that he was with before, that he's actually done something. He's actually become this kind of somewhat heroic kind of star pilot kind of captain, and all the other gems are following him. He's making a nuisance of himself to some of the gems out there commanding their own ships, and he's actually being pretty cool, and he really impresses Stephen and Connie, and then Stevani once that happens. And obviously the core of the episode is that everything's going fine. They're all really impressed with him. He's impressing us as the audience that he's made such a big change. And then he sees the pictures of like Sadie on Stephen's phone, and immediately it just, this like aura he's presenting just breaks, and he's suddenly really, really angry. Like, why isn't she upset? Why doesn't she miss me? How is she having fun without me? I thought we had like a connection. And it's one of those weird ones where I think it's immediately like, ooh, like, why are you going in this direction with this? But also at the same time, you do sort of understand in that, like, he's lost in space. That's a pretty crazy thing to hear about. And obviously the idea is that, Sadie doesn't fully understand what Lars is going through, and then he doesn't exactly know how she's dealing with what she's going through, which is why obviously they when they talk through it, and Stephen and Connie make it clear that like she is very upset, but she had to move on. Everyone has to move on. That she of course still misses you. It was this really interesting kind of dynamic throughout the episode where like eventually we got to the point where he was all but saying that he loves her, and that's, I think, very clear that that's going to be a very emotional reunion whenever it happens. It was just, I think, a lot of the setup they'd done in this episode was kind of immediately taken back down a notch when like Stephen and Connie form Stevani in front of everyone and just say, because you're best friends, and it's just like, really, that's what you took from this? The connection between Lars and Sadie is just that they're best friends. So that was I think unintentionally really funny moment of just like, wow, you forget how young these characters are, but at the same time they're not super young, so they probably should be realizing the extent of their relationship. But Yeah, that was most of the initial episode. Obviously, the kind of the other gems with their kind of unique personalities are quite fun and interesting. They've all got their own kind of like little gimmicks as personalities. Like the one who's slow to can predict the future, but it's kind of delayed enough that like it actually happens later on. So that was quite interesting. Obviously, we've met her before. But yeah, that's most of the first episode. When they get back on track, basically, it's just Stevani jumps in the ship that Lars has made, which is quite impressive. That like he just made himself a ship that he could fly, and Stevani pilots it, takes out Emerald's ship, and she was an interesting enough character, I think, with what they did, in that they played up the whole idea of just him being like the charismatic captain who just frustrates the enemy commander and just gains victories with his charisma in a way, and how he took advantage of the fact that she really, really cared about the ship and wouldn't damage it all that much. But yeah, the result is just that Stevani ends up crash landing on this jungle planet, and it's a bit of it's an interesting episode in that it's just they're trying to somehow get back in touch with Lars, and it's a bit of like Stevani surviving on their own and so on. But the core, I think the big takeaway for sure is when we have the kind of flashback dream sequence thing, and how they go about like showing it. And initially you're just kind of like, okay, we're in Stephen and Connie's kind of combined mind, so okay, they're talking about it's kind of like a mix of both of what they would normally dream about. So it's Connie's mother, who's maybe a little bit overbearing, and then Stephen's kind of fears about what's going on with the diamonds and his mother and so on, and it's all kind of linking together. But then quickly the Connie stuff sort of fades away, and we just link kind of more directly into what's going on in Stephen's mind. And clearly the idea is that it's not just Stephen's mind, it's also Rose's mind, because he has her gem. And obviously the interpretation is like, is this something that Rose saw happen, or like knows that happened, or wait, how does this actually happen? Like we sort of see like Pink Diamond at the end in like a mirror, as if this is a memory of Pink Diamond. But then why would why would Stephen necessarily have these memories? And it was really interesting because the characterization initially of Pink Diamond seems to be that she's very young, like impetuous, wants to do the same things that the other diamonds are doing, but is going about it in a kind of very childish way of like, I want my own planet, I want my own army, that sort of thing. And clearly at some point it probably comes down to the fact that they end up giving in to her, and it obviously depends on what way they go with the whole Pink Diamond thing, and like if they are the same person or if there's just they know each other. Because if they are separate people, like you can sort of see now the idea of like this kind of emotionally stable kind of character in like a leadership position, having this very kind of childish view on how to have command of like a planet, and obviously we know some of the details about like what Pink kind of had like command over, what her kind of experiments were, and you could sort of see where like Rose, understanding the humans, would disagree with someone who just really thinks of like humanity as like a plaything. And it is, I think, very interesting. Obviously it leaves the potential for more of this to happen, where like if Stevani ever has another dream like this, we can get more information. And then of course we have the whole Pearl thing, where like Pearl sort of knows what's going on, and as some people have speculated about, seems to almost be like a physical thing where like she just actually can't talk about certain events in her life because of some sort of secrecy, rather than just it being too hard for her to talk about. So there's still some big reveals to come out, and we're gradually, it seems like, getting towards those moments. It's just about when they're going to decide to actually commit to them. Because I think that the show's only real problem has been that it overall, with the plot and the mysteries that it's set up, leaves so much open to actually have big moments. It's just the nature of how they go about doing these reveals some of the times. It just feels like, okay, we're on break now, we'll come back for like an episode, do this one thing, and then we'll just completely skip, and it'll be like a bunch of like Beach City resident episodes, and then we'll cut back to that later on, and like, oh, the gems have been missing for like 10 episodes, but here they are back finally dealing with this thing from like 20 episodes ago. There's a little bit too much of that in the series, in that they really need to just commit to just a really good string of kind of more continuity focused episodes, because even to a degree we did take a little bit of a break from the fact that like, oh, Lars, we're just kind of leaving him off in space because Stephen and Connie have had an argument and Lion has gone with Connie rather than Stephen, and it's just like, okay, that's why we're not immediately dealing with Lars right now. So I like both of these episodes. I didn't think they were like brilliant or like completely amazing in every single way, in that I think the Stranded on the Jungle Moon planet was really good for what it did at the end, but before that it was just kind of like Stevonnie doing stuff before she gets the call out to Lars to kind of be picked back up. And then the Lars in the first episode I think was cool, but I think that it played too much with the whole kind of thing that Steven Universe tends to do a little bit too much, which is that it creates an issue for characters and then just always relies on the characters will talk about it and make up in a kind of slightly emotional scene. In that it feels like it just creates these issues and then immediately resolves them a little too much, that it just relies too much on the whole like talking about our feelings kind of dynamic, which makes us like know the characters a lot because they end up being very open with their feelings, but it ends up being something that I think is used a bit too much in certain episodes, and that I almost don't feel like you had to do the whole Lars thing in this episode. That it felt like Lars had developed enough in these last few episodes where like you didn't need to necessarily do the whole freak out about Sadie kind of moving on. I almost felt like it would have been a more interesting thing for his character to kind of accept it and almost kind of go the other way of like not being like the really kind of childish Lars where he feels like, oh, she can't have fun without me, and more like, oh, she's moved on, and that like I don't have any obvious way where I feel like I'm immediately going to get back to Earth, but I'm going to make my way back to see if, you know, our relationship is still a thing. I felt like he's kind of matured enough that like that should have been kind of where they went with it, but it was weird that they almost reverted him back and then kind of went back to like, oh yeah, he's developed a bit. Yeah, so 2 solid episodes, but I think immediately goes to now, what's next? Like we're halfway through the season, or is it? I keep forgetting how many episodes in the season we have anymore. Like 26 usually, but I think they're like shorter seasons now. So is it only 20? So yeah, we're roughly halfway through the season. I completely forget how many episodes we have at this point. But in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on both of these episodes. Where do you think things are going? What's your interpretation of the whole Pink Diamond thing? Do you think it is a lot of the theories of like Rose is Pink Diamond, or what? Because I suppose the way people are going with that is that somehow it's going to be revealed that like Steven's gem is actually a diamond, in that it's just the way the diamond is kind of orientated on him. It's like the diamond, the bit that would make it more look like a diamond, is kind of pointing in towards him, whereas like the other characters, it's more kind of presented to us when you look at it from looking at them. It makes it clear that it's a diamond. So they you know, there's people coming up with theories like that where like, oh, that's why it makes sense. I'm still not really sure, just because like a lot of times when they tend to do these sort of reveals, it's very much we're getting this little bit of backstory from this character's perspective, and they don't often do the thing that most shows do, where when someone tells you a backstory, you take it as like that is exactly what has happened. That's just through this character telling us the backstory, we're getting exactly what happened. Whereas this show, I think, leans into doing it a little bit more like, no, this is very much this character's interpretation of what happened, and then in this case, it's a dream sequence interpretation where it could also be impacted by Connie being part of this, and aspects of like her dreaming alter what like the importance of this dream is to like Stephen and the plot. I don't really know if that's the way we're meant to interpret it, but it adds a bit of confusion to the overall sequence. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.